Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be going through our Week 8 IDP waiver wire ads.
Hike!
All right, Joe. So the first player we're going to be talking about is a Denver Bronco, who is defensive end Nik Bonitto. Joe, he's had a sack in each of the last, 6 games, I think it's been, or last 5 games? 5
the last
games.
5. Yep.
5 games, which I think hasn't happened since Von Miller. He's rostered in 17% of leagues. Joe, he's really, he's a one-sack wonder. Other than that, he doesn't really do all that much. So what are you going after Nik Bonitto? How much FAAB you spending for him?
I mean, if you're in the, kind of like ours, similar scoring to us, the big play scoring, and you reward guys for sacks, I do think he's worth it. I wouldn't go crazy for him. I think he's a, potential ad, and just to see if he can keep this up, which I think he can. I think part of the problem is why he only gets the one sack is he's really just a speed guy. He's got to develop more pass rush moves, but his get off is really fast, and his speed is what allows him to, get to the quarterback and been able to have the sack run that he's currently on. But I think it's, worth it if he's possibly on it. I'd probably just say speculative ad, like anywhere from 0 to 3%. I'm not going crazy for him, just, buying the sacks because this, it's going to be hard to sustain this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have him. I probably around 0 to 3% as well. I mean, he played, 57% of the snaps, which was just behind Jonathan Cooper. But there is a little bit of a rotation between Baron Browning, Bonitto, Cooper. So I think my always thing, and maybe this is a bad way of looking at it, but my mind is like, okay, he's had 5 sacks. Is he going to really continue it? Like, it's almost like you're expecting it to end. Like the streak's going to end eventually. Like it's gonna dry up, but he keeps doing it. So it's like I feel like you probably should pick him up.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got a good potential for it to keep going here with the Panthers coming this week. Broncos should be able to get to a lead, and just, I mean, Vance Joseph's very aggressive. He likes to blitz, and at this point, Dalton's not the most agile guy.
Are you enjoying this episode so far? Well, if you are, subscribe to our YouTube channel, smash that like button, and hit the notification bell for upcoming videos. We do videos throughout the year, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store. So the next player we're going to be talking about, seems like, Joe, you and I are just talking a lot about our players in Broncos and Bills, but I guess it's fun that way. But that's going to be edge rusher, defensive end, AJ Epenesa. These past 2 weeks, he's been on a tear. He's had a forced fumble in both games. He had a sack against the Titans, 2 solo tackles, an assisted tackle for loss, and a QB hit. Before that, he had 2 sacks. He definitely seems to be coming into his own here. Only rostered in 24% of leagues. What are your thoughts on Epenesa, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, no doubt these last 2 games he's been really impressive. He was impressive against the Jets where he was able to get 2 sacks on Rodgers. And, I mean, coming off his blind side, Rodgers didn't even see him in that game. I definitely think, it seems like he is putting something together. And I think the Bills got some favorable matchups coming up for him to possibly take advantage and, another guy keep getting the sacks. But unlike Bonitto, I feel like he does provide you, some tackles and involvement in the run game and things like that as well. And he's been able to get those forced fumbles, and that's another big play, allowing for more points. So yeah, I'm interested in adding Epenesa, as Rousseau seems to be coming into his own a little bit on the opposite side. That's only going to help Epenesa, playing opposite of him. So, I probably, I don't know how much I'd really spend up for him, but probably similar to Bonitto, maybe just, anywhere from around the 3% mark, and just more so, add and see if he can't, like Bonitto, keep improving off of these performances.
I'd probably go 5% for me, honestly.
Okay.
Just because I like what he's doing, and honestly, he's playing a lot of snaps. And I think probably a part of the reason why is because Von Miller is suspended right now.
Right.
But he got 73% of the snaps. In a game that towards the end was kind of a blowout. So, Bills, Sean McDermott likes to rotate the edge rushers. So I was a little surprised to see how high his snap percentage was. But he's starting to get into his own. But here's the thing, both these guys, I would say they're kind of deeper IDP leagues. If you're only starting 1 or 2 or 3 guys, these guys aren't going to. I mean, you have to be pretty gutsy to put him in if you're only starting 3 IDP. Now, if it's a full IDP like you and I play in, you're starting 2 edges and you got a flex. That's a different story.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we mostly talk about the deeper cuts anyways.
We do. And the next player we're going to be talking about is defensive tackle Calais Campbell, the Miami Dolphins, a guy, Joe, who you identified in free agency that you were going to go grab, and you've been rewarded. Yeah. Had a great game. He had 5 solo tackles, 3 tackles for loss. Obviously, we score pretty high for tackles, especially for defensive tackles. So, that rewarded you quite well. But overall, I mean, he's still doing it, Joe. He's only rostered 23% of leagues. He's played in the NFL 16 years, 38 years old. The guy is just, he just keeps going. What are your thoughts on Calais Campbell?
Yeah, it's amazing, man. He's 38 years old, and like you mentioned, he just keeps going, but he keeps getting provided these opportunities with these teams. I mean, he, was impressed with the Falcons, and then just, I was interested in him with the Dolphins because they moved on from Christian Wilkins. They're going to need somebody to fill that void. Campbell just happens to be the guy, and having a guy like, Sealer inside also helps him. And I thought having Campbell is also going to help him as well. So, hard to double team a big guy like Calais Campbell. He's making his impact felt with a nice tackle floor for you for if you have to start the defensive tackles. He's a pretty good option.
Yeah, I mean, he has a great tackle floor. I mean, he doesn't have as much help with the edge rushers with Jalen Phillips, being done for the year again. Bradley Chubb is obviously out for the year last year during his ACL. So I feel like he doesn't get as much support, but he's got that Christian Wilkins role right now, and he is able to get that high tackle floor. So if you're in a defensive tackle required league, I think it makes a lot of sense to add this guy. 0.3% probably.
Yeah. Yep. Once again, not going crazy for him, not like a must add, but I do think, he's a guy worth putting on your bench at least.
So the next guy we're going to be talking about here is linebacker Nakobe Dean. Oh, he might have had his best game in his career. 6 total tackles, 5 assisted, 2 tackles for loss, 4 QB hits, and 2 sacks. He just played out of his mind. Rostered in 52% of leagues. Decently rostered, but could be more. What are your thoughts on Nakobe Dean? We thought Zach Baum was going to be the guy. And although he started off hot, he's kind of fizzled. So is now Nakobe Dean kind of taking over the reins here? What are your thoughts there?
I mean, it certainly looks that way. I mean, he's been scoring pretty well. Obviously, scored really well in this, the past couple of weeks, but especially against the Giants. He's able to get a couple of sacks as they had 8 sacks as a team, which is pretty incredible. But yeah, we were interested in Zach Baum. I think, we were kind of concerned with Nakobe Dean because, with his injuries, and then they had also had Devin White on the roster. They've since moved on from him. So this really opened the door for, Baum and Dean to come out. But we're finally seeing a healthy Nakobe Dean and all the prowess and rage that he had, surrounding him and what an athletic player he was at Georgia. Finally starting to see that. So I do think he's a solid add for you at the linebacker position. Seems to be getting a steady amount of tackles as well. So I'm probably somewhere $5 to $8 on Nakobe Dean. I think he's a good ad.
Yeah, the big thing with him was always, can he stay healthy? That was the biggest question mark. And now he has been able to stay healthy. He always was talented out of Georgia. He's getting those opportunities. I'd say 10%, maybe a little higher. I think he led the team in snaps, so I don't think this is an anomaly. And, honestly, Dean's got the better pedigree than Baum. I mean, I think it just, for whatever reason we saw Baum kind of getting those opportunities early on. So if this is this could be a trend, and I don't want to miss out.
Yeah, it definitely has been trending. I mean, even, I know he's had the big games, but, in our league, at least, he's even the 2 games prior to the Cleveland game where he really had a good game, he still had 16.5 and 16 points with our scoring. So he's been a steady guy throughout the season. And if he keeps, emerging like he is, and I think these higher point totals could continue.
So last guy we're going to be talking about is defensive and edge rusher Andrew Van Ginkel. Now, he's a guy who we've talked about before. So if you watched our Week 4 IDP waiver wire, episode, then you would have heard about him. But I got to tell you, Joe, looking at him, I was like, how is this guy not more rostered? Only rostered in 67% of leagues. In my opinion, I think he should be rostered in near 100% of leagues. This past week, he had a forced fumble, 2 sacks, tackle assisted, 6 solo tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 QB hits. Guy's been on an absolute tear. And based on our scoring, which obviously we do more towards the big play scoring, he's second for total scoring of all defensive end players. The only one that's beaten him is TJ Watt. I mean, the guy is having an incredible year. So even in not a deep league, I just don't understand how you're not having this guy on your roster. I'm spending at least 15-20% to get this guy.
Wow. That's the most we've mentioned here with being aggressive and getting somebody, but I do agree. I mean, he's got 5 total sacks on the season. We've seen he's kind of got a knack to finding the end zone as well, but keeps creating the big plays. He's a guy who impressed it, with Miami, especially made a name for himself on special teams. Then Phillips went down. He came on then and, being able to play with Robert Flores too. I think he's the perfect fit. The guy
Brian Flores.
What did I say?
Robert Flores.
Oh, I meant Brian Flores. I don't know what that is, but
maybe you're thinking of Bob Saleh, but
yeah, nonetheless, Brian Flores, that's what I meant. I think they are a perfect match, as Van Ginkel just likes to play with his hair on fire and fly all over the field, and that's exactly what you see him doing, for this Minnesota Vikings defense.
Well, the thing, too, is they've got familiarity, right? Flores and Van Ginkel.
Yeah.
Van Ginkel was in Miami when Flores was the head coach, so it makes all sense in the world. And the thing I like about him is before he was a rotational guy, he was a backup. He never really was a starter for the Dolphins. He was a starter by default during injuries, and that's why people were interested in him, but never the, pure starter. Well, he led the edge rushers this past week with 96% of snaps. He's outpacing Jonathan Grenard and Pat Jones and people like that who we've had a tendency to talk about. So I think he's the edge rusher you want, and he is performing. The numbers that we're seeing right now, he's performing at a clip that's similar to TJ Watt, Aiden Hutchinson, Max Crosby. So to get a guy like that, you got to go get him.
Yeah, I think you definitely do. And the more he keeps having these big games, the harder and harder it's going to be to get him. So this just might be the week you have to go ahead and acquire him. And I think I'm fine. This is definitely the one guy that I'm really willing to put my chips all in. And, like you mentioned, that I think at that level I'm even comfortable with and just going to get him because I think he's really the one guy that he's ready to impact your roster right now.
So that does it for this episode. We talked about some waiver wire ads for week 8. Make sure you go ahead and check your waiver wire, see if they're available, and go pick them up. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.